to episode 66 of our series on the surnames of Appalachia and the American South. On today's show, we'll look at 8 more requested surnames. Our search for their meanings and origins will take us to the Germanic lands of Northern Europe, including those of the Vikings. We'll also investigate France, as well as Ireland and Scotland in our search for these names. I hope you'll join me. Let's get started. Number 1, Lanier. Well, when I wrote this name, I immediately thought of the NBA legend Bob Lanier. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame in 1992. Bob's surname has a French sound to it, but is that where it originated? And did it mean one who bounces balls? Let's see what my research turned up. As it turns out, it is indeed a French surname, deriving from laine wool. Alas, it had nothing to do with bouncing or shooting basketballs. In looking outside of France and North America, including Quebec, the name has a small presence in England, but it's rare elsewhere. At the end of the day, I'm confident that Lanier is a French surname. Number 2, Ferriby or Ferriby. Whenever I see a name that ends with a BE sound or BY sound, no matter how it's spelled, I'm inclined to think that it has a Viking or Norse origin. The BE or BY suffix means farm. For instance, Appleby would mean apple farm. It didn't take long for me to find that it's a habitational name for one who lived in North Ferriby in Yorkshire, England. Yorkshire, of course, was heavily settled by Vikings. In fact, York in Old Norse looks like this, Jorvik. Ferriby is not a very common surname, so it doesn't appear among the traditional families of Ireland, Wales, or Scotland. I'm confident that Ferriby is an English surname of Norse origin. Number 3, Pressler. Well, thank you very much. I'd have to be daft not to think of Elvis when I wrote this requested surname. As we've mentioned a few times, most of the names that we see across the Appalachian and Southern landscapes are English or Anglo-American forms of names that originated in another time and place, and Pressler is no exception. It's an English variant of the name Priestley, as in the actor Jason Priestley. Some Americans use the Pressler name to replace the German Pressler. The king of rock and roll was not of German origin, at least on his Pressler line, and even though some people think he was a Melungeon, he was not. His oldest documented ancestors were Andrew Pressler and Elspeth Legge from Aberdeenshire, Scotland. Aberdeen, Scotland. I think the name Legge is fitting because he seemed to have a bit of a problem with shaking that leg. He also had a problem with his lip. I couldn't find Pressler among the traditional surnames of Ireland or Wales. So, I'm confident that Pressler is a Scottish surname with English linguistic roots. Number 4, Blankenship. About 70 years ago, the federal government began the Manhattan Project. As part of the project, the city of Oak Ridge, Tennessee was formed from existing communities like Robertsville, Jefferson, and Jackson, among others. That acquisition certainly impacted my father's family, who had deep roots in the area. It also lured my mom's parents to leave the mountains of western North Carolina for a life in East Tennessee. The new city of Oak Ridge established a school and a system to govern the school, and its high school became one of the best in the state. That shouldn't be a surprise because many PhDs with backgrounds in physics, chemistry, and engineering made the secret city their home. Their sports teams also had great success. The high school's football team played its games, as it still does, on Blankenship Field. That's in Jackson Square. The surname is an alternate form of the Northumbrian surname of Blenkinsop. Like Ferriby that we discussed earlier, Blenkinsop is a Northern English surname. Aside from England, Blenkinsop appears in the Scottish records dating back to the 1400s. Now, I couldn't find it among the traditional surnames of Ireland or Wales, so I think a paper trail will lead you to either England or Scotland. Number 5, Sisson. From the age of 12, I grew up on 2nd Norway Lane in Oliver Springs, Tennessee. I think I mentioned that a few times already. One of the thoroughfares that crosses my old lane is Sisson Street, which is named for a local family. In locating the origins of the surname Sisson, we didn't have to depart northern England. It was introduced into the Isles with those French-speaking Vikings, the Normans. It became established in Yorkshire and appears in the tax records. They're dating back to 1379. The name is derived from Ciss, not cisgender. It's a diminutive of Cicely, or Cicely. I couldn't find Sisson among the other countries' traditional surnames, so I think that your paper trail, subject to no hanky-panky in your family tree, of course, will lead you to Yorkshire, England. Number 6, MacCarroll. Carroll is one of those surnames that sounds very English, so the Mac prefix certainly suggests an Irish or Scottish origin. It began its existence as one of these Irish names. In Ireland, MacCarroll meant son of a warrior. Even in Scotland, Carroll is considered an Irish surname. It's not among the common surnames in Wales, so it looks like in Appalachia and the South, we should consider MacCarroll an Irish surname. Number 7, Hastings. This habitational surname is one that has gone down in history as mostly associated with the Battle of Hastings, which occurred on October 14, 1066 in East Sussex, England. It was there that an invasion force of more than 12,000 Norman soldiers and their allies from Brittany and Flanders defeated a terribly fatigued army under the Anglo-Saxon king Harold Godwinson. Godwinson's army was tired because it had just defeated a Norse army some 100 miles north and then turned around and marched due south to Hastings without rest. In the heat of the battle, Godwinson was killed by an arrow through his eye, and William, Duke of Normandy, went on to become the King of England. He was crowned at Westminster Abbey on Christmas Day 1066. The Hastings surname originated there in Sussex, England, but members of that family relocated to Scotland. Meanwhile, members of the Scottish Hairstane family changed their spelling to Hastings. In Ireland, members of the clan, which means the descendant of, changed their name to Hastings. Because of these surname adoptions and family relocations, you'll need a paper trail to locate the origin of your line of Hastings. Number 8, Winters. Folks, I must admit that I was and continue to be a fan of The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. The later shows just don't add up. I also love the Dean Martin roasts. All these old shows can be found on YouTube, thankfully. It was while watching Johnny Carson that I rediscovered Jonathan Winters. When I was a kid, I thought he was just plain silly and not very sophisticated. In my 50s, I realized that he was a genius and it was me who was not very sophisticated. His greatest talent was in ad-libbing skits. He could also deliver dialogue using several really good accents, French, German, English, etc. At any rate, I was delighted to cover Winters. This surname has roots going back to Old High German. The Anglo-Saxons brought it to the Isles. As you might guess, winter was given to someone who either enjoyed the winter or was somehow associated with that season of the year. Winters, therefore, means the son of winter. It's found among the traditional surnames of Ireland and Scotland, so I think you'll need a paper trail to locate the origin of your specific line of Winters. Well, folks, that's about all I have for you today. I hope you got something meaningful out of it. And if you did, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Until I see you again, may the good Lord bless and keep you. May He make His face shine on you and give you peace. Bye-bye.